You make my high come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was loving you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feelings changed. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, at Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Shout out to everyone who is watching or listening via our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the channel. That is Seahawks Man, the number 2. Man, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, even if you are someone who listens to us via audio platforms. It just means a lot to us, just that gesture, even if that's not your primary means of consumption. The same thing goes for our Instagram. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the handle, and TikTok. Seahawks Man-to-Man is the name of the handle there. Like and subscribe, share, whatever, repost, whatever the kids are doing on those apps. It really just helps us a lot, even if you're not a frequent person, on those platforms. Thank you. Chris, go ahead, talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206 and at CKid206.
All right, before we dive into the Seahawks overtime loss to the Rams 26-20 at Lumen Field, yada. Programming note, I'm going on my honeymoon during the bye week. I'll be gone for a week. There will be no shows. Just letting you guys know that. So when you hit your feed, say, hey, where Mike and Chris at during the bye week? I want to argue about Geno. Argue amongst yourselves, or just tweet Chris.
Oh God,
I will be on it. I will be at a all-inclusive resort. Don't bother me. I still love you guys. Just don't bother me. All right. Programming note. Want to get that out of the way. Make sure. Tweet Chris. Do not tweet me. I will not respond. I will get yelled at by my wife if I'm arguing with you guys on social media on my honeymoon. All right, Chris. Let's get to the game. They lost again. It stinks. We knew ahead of this game how big it was. It was almost impossible to overstate the importance of the game. I'm going to throw out a number here. As part of like a quick spiel before we get to the questions. Thank you. We got a million of them. I love it. Chris, to put a statistical mark on this, I hit up our guy, Austin Mock, who does our projection model for The Athletic. He says, according to his model, he runs like 1,000 simulations or whatever. It's a model. You guys get how those work. The Seahawks only have a 10% chance of making the playoffs at this point and a 7% chance at winning the division. They're currently 4th place in the division. The Rams, with the win, bump up to 2nd place. And they're feeling good. They've won 3 straight. Before we get into the questions, though, Chris, I feel like unofficially and officially, getting to the bye week was at a perfect time in terms of assessing the team. They fire Pete. They bring in all these new guys. And it's like, all right, we strip down the Pete isms and the Pete infrastructure and build this thing in Mike Macdonald's image with his new staff, his new identity and philosophy. And that stuff takes time. It takes wins. It takes losses. It takes blowouts. It takes nail biters to really find out about a team and its identity and its philosophy and all this stuff you want to learn about a new coaching staff. 9 games in is a perfect sample, I think, to have a really good first impression of all the new coaches in the cycle. Raheem Morris, Gerard Mayo, Brian Callahan. I feel like of all the teams, you can stop right now in week 9 or whatever and get a good feel for where some of these teams are at, particularly the ones that have a lot of veterans like the Seahawks. Maybe it's not a good feel for like the Panthers or whatever because they really just stink. But for Mike Macdonald's staff, I feel like we could genuinely say we learned a lot in these 9 games. And Chris, unfortunately, it really feels like the thing we've learned that we can say definitively about the Seahawks and under Mike Macdonald and his new staff through 9 games at 4-5 after a 3-0 start is that the thing they do great, the thing they're really good at, is not being good enough. And that's really, it's really disappointing that is the conclusion that I have. We'll see where you fall on this. But it does feel like the reality of a team that often does a lot of things good and then does a lot of things bad, whether from drive to drive, play to play, quarter to quarter, half to half, or week to week. It just feels like it's one step forward, another step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, penalties, whatever. They just find different ways to just not deliver when it's time on either side of the ball or special teams in the case of the Giants game. When it's time to go do it, with the exception of the Patriots game, which they won. What are the Patriots right now? 2-7. So, take that for what it is. Outside of that game, Chris, it feels like the Seahawks they've mastered the art of doing whatever it takes to not win, in crunch time, specifically crunch time. And that is perhaps, I don't think there's hyperbole to say, that is perhaps the worst possible result of this new regime is to have mastered that specific thing through 9 games.
They are the master of none. They don't have an identity. They don't know what they want to do. And you see it when you watch the games. It's really crazy to say that 9 weeks in after Sunday's loss to the Rams that what does this team want to do? They say all the right things going with the pressers, and obviously I doubt they're going to come out and be 1,000% honest. Hey, we suck right now. From the offensive line, you name it. They're not going to do that because they have to give that belief to the players. But at some point, there has to be a reality check. You think the Panthers head coach is in there telling them, yeah, guys, we're a good team. We have chance. No. He's saying, let's just win this game. Can we do that? Can we win? Actually, not even win the game. Can we win a possession? I think that's where it starts. Can you win that possession there and you take it step by step? My gosh, the Seahawks are not far behind. Can they win a possession? Can they win on the first drive? Can they win on the second drive? They started the game, punt, 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 3 straight punts.
There's got to be a turnover in there somewhere.
And an interception. So even more, it's worse. Punt, interception, punt, punt, punt. But they don't have an identity. They don't know who they are yet. And if they knew who they were, this wouldn't be an issue. They would have an ability to run the football, or they would be a team that relies on the pass. They don't know where they stand. JSN had a great game for nothing. That great game means absolutely nothing. Everyone talk, JSN, you was killing them. We lost. I know people don't even know this guy that I'm going to bring up, but there's a gentleman that I play flag football on the weekends. You know what he does to me? He tries to get in my head and talk smack. His name is Taryn. He just talks. My team is winning. But what are you doing, kid? I don't care. We're winning. I don't have to have a catch. If we win the football game and I didn't do anything, I could care less. He always comes up to me after the game talking crazy, blah, blah, blah. And that reminds me of JSN. The dude played great, but it don't matter, bruh. It really doesn't. Almost had 200 yards and a loss. Caught 2 incredible touchdowns, and they lose. And dare I say, that 4th and 1 call was terrible for multiple reasons. Number one, Geno led the Seahawks with 51 seconds and no timeouts, 4th quarter, to a touchdown. Geno did that. Despite how bad the offensive line was, he was able to find JSN, make plays, touchdown, tie the game. Dare I say, maybe go for 2, Mike McDonald, at this point. But I get it. You went to overtime. They ran the football effectively in the overtime. But when it got down to 4th and 1, there's no way on this green earth that I would think I'm going to hand the ball off and think that this offensive line can hold up. And what's even more insane is Mike McDonald saying we're not a good or great football teams, good football teams able to run in 4th and 1. Well, hey, buddy, it's 8 weeks in. Do you really think you're a good or great football team?
Let me read his whole quote before you just to get the wording exactly down, Pat. On that, he said, "This was post game." Mike McDonald. I don't know what the question was because I wasn't in there, but I'm just reading the transcript of it. He says, let me make sure I got this right. He says, "Quote: We got to be able to get half a yard in 2 shots. Great football teams convert 3rd and 4th and short, and right now we're not doing that." End quote.
Right now, Mike, let me go back and watch the film for the last 8 weeks, bro. There is lessons upon lessons that says you're meh. You know what meh teams do? They give it to their best player. Who's your best player on offense? It's not Ken right now. It wasn't Ken during the game. It was Geno Smith and JSN. That's what you do. You give it to Geno. You have a creative play where it's one-on-one. You spread them out, empty, I don't care, whatever the look is, you just try to find either JSN or Tyler Lockett. There's no need for them to try to have Tyler Lockett blocking an edge guy on 4th and 1. If anything, bring in Jake Bobo. Bring in your heavier package. Hell, number 82, what's his name? Cody. Oh my gosh. Cody White. He's a big body. Get him in the game. He was actually in on that play, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is, I just didn't like the decision. I really didn't. I really thought, give it to Geno Smith, live with the results. He gave you guys an opportunity to be in the game at the end of the game. Is that not enough? I think it was just, we got to run the football here. Oh, no. Running the football has not done anything. Ken Walker ended with 3.3 yards per carry in that game. Not good. Stunk. Wasn't good at all. I know the overtime, they were running the football effectively, but yeah, they don't have an identity. I didn't like the play call on the 4th and 1, so I'm sorry there. But they don't know who they are. And that's been a problem for the last 9 weeks. They don't know who they are. And I know there's a couple of clips that you want to play that, he takes a lot on his plate, but he's just being too nice. Call Connor out or something. Call him up on the phone. Bruh, you are killing me. The first snap of the game, you get beat. Those are, when I watched the game, I said, I don't know how much longer they're going to do this. I mean, it's not as if they can go and trade for a center and just get better. There's nothing. I don't know if there's anything out there. Luckily, they were able to get Ernest Jones, the linebacker, to help. And the defense, again, they played better against the Rams, but it's the Rams. They have the same record the Seahawks do. Whoop-de-doo. They're going to be tested off their bye week. And if they can shut down that offense, that run offense with the Niners, okay, then you can talk to me about, whoop-de-woo. But right now, I'm not impressed. And they lost 26-20 in overtime. So go ahead.
And I think the reason that them not kind of knowing who they are, or just not really, I know that they know what they want to be, but they just can't be it. Which is it's same result. You're taking the path to just kind of floating in the abyss. You're just a collection of kind of good players, kind of bad players who are kind of good and then kind of not. It's the worst thing, I think, because they weren't built for like ambiguity. Like, there's I feel like they fall in a few categories. I'm looking at the teams now. There's a few teams who like had the high expectations and are like really letting themselves down. And I feel like, yes, Dallas is the one that comes to mind in the NFC. And I feel like in the AFC, it's very similar. I'm going to scrap Miami because they lost Tua for a little bit. But the Jets and the Bengals, I would say, the Seahawks, Jets, Bengals, and Cowboys are probably in that same boat where they're like, hey, our roster is not Jacksonville as well. Those 5. We're not cheap. Our quarterback's not necessarily cheap. We're not cheap. Like, our roster is not cheap. They have expensive rosters, a lot of veteran players on big contracts. And there's expectations in the building. Now, I think the Seahawks are the only one of those teams with a new coach, but that does not matter. The point is that all of those teams kind of went in being like, we can't be but. Like, we can't stink. We're not built to stink. Like, there are some teams where, like, stinking is just completely unacceptable. Some of these new teams with new coaches, that's not the case. Like, we mentioned the Panthers, mentioned the Patriots. There's another team that stinks that has a new coach. Think the Titans. Those teams, if they stink, which they do, kind of is what it is. The Raiders as well, although they just fired their OC. Like, teams like Jacksonville, teams like Seattle, teams like Dallas, like the Jets. We could even throw the Browns in there. They expect it to be good. Like, it magnifies the ineptitude because you had expectations of greater. And you have, I would argue in the case of the Jets and the Seahawks for sure, you have more talent than your record is suggesting. Or not even your record, just your product. Chris, they just can't play a clean game to save their lives. It's really nuts. And it really that's what I mean by it contributes to them just not being good enough. I don't necessarily mean that they're not clutch per se. That's part of it. It really is like, it feels like they fix one issue and then another one pops up. One position group steps it up and then another one takes a step back. And then like one day the protection is good enough for Geno and then the next day it's not. And then one day Geno's on it and then the next day he's not as much. It really feels like they're just finding different ways to not be the team they want to be. That's the worst possible thing I think could have happened. Honestly, it would be worse if they were like 2-7 or whatever, because then you can kind of like, all right, trade deadline. We can do this. Or 7-2, you're like, all right, well, we know who we are. Maybe we're not first in the conference. That's the Lions, but we're right there with them. They're just stuck in this ugly little middle ground where they have a lot of good pieces, but no vision, no direction. And that is the
Purgatory.
worst place to be. Purgatory. Thank you. They're just stuck. They're stuck. And last thing before we go to questions, that feels like a disaster and a failure, in particular because they fired Pete because they were stuck. It's not like being stuck is a new emotion around here. They got rid of Pete and his staff because they were stuck, because they were on the hamster wheel, just running in place. And they're trending towards financially, roster wise, product, whatever, being in the same boat. They're still on the wheel. They just changed the hamster. It's the same thing. And that is what's most disheartening about the disheartening is probably too strong. I'm not emotionally invested in that way. But that's what's most troubling, is that the thing they were trying to avoid with the overhauling of the staff and a lot of important players too, did change nothing. A roundabout way to the same spot. It's really unfortunate. We'll get into why. We got a bazillion questions, a bazillion clips, but that does feel like, beyond the intricacies of the loss, we can talk about some more plays as well. But beyond the details of the specific loss, I feel like what this loss represents is really problematic. The season's not over because there's 8 games left, but the margin for error is non-existent. You have to win the division to make the playoffs. And to win a division, you got to play some of the cleanest football known to man. And whether you believe in the talent on the team, it is very hard to envision clean football on either side of the ball or special teams. There's block PAT today. Like, I can't imagine feeling confident in clean ball. There's talent. I believe in talent. But playing clean ball, Chris, that seems just like a pipe dream. And that is, again, just totally just awful, considering why the hell they overhauled the staff in the first place.
My apologies. I got so amped up about the poor offensive line that I mentioned it was the first play that Geno was sacked. But he wasn't sacked on the first play. It was the they got a first down, actually, believe it or not. And then after that, I think it was the second or third. It was 2nd and 9, and Geno drops back and kaput. Everybody gets beat. You have your sack. But nonetheless, let's get to the most important thing, and that's Twitter questions. That gives a chance for listeners all over the world, appreciate all the love and support, to ask questions. So this week, because we got so many, and we should probably do this more often, Mike, especially when we have 80 or whatever the number might be, we switched it up. We're not going to read everybody's handle, but we did pretty much categorize them to make it easy on us. So we're not going to directly go one by one, because my God, we'll be here all night. And, people are busy.
We will.
So we'll start off, because I think the hottest topic right now is Geno Smith. And with that being said, he didn't play the greatest game. We all know that. We saw it, watched it. But to get things rolling, let's go through the interceptions. He had 3 of them things. I don't know where Mike stands. We didn't even rap about it. He threw 3. I would say there was one that I blame Geno 100%. The other 2, JSN got to catch the football. There's nothing. You have to catch the football. He tried to body catch it. Didn't work out. It ended up being an interception. The second one, AJ Barner running across.
That's the third one.
Well, my bad. So that is the third one. The second one that he throws, I didn't like that one at all. That is the one that I say that is on Geno Smith. He tried to force it in there. There's pressure in his face. He got hit. The ball got lofted. You just can't make that type of throw. You cannot. Ken Walker is open. You take the check down. And Geno's usually money at taking check downs. Before the half, on multiple games, I've seen Geno take the check down. He will give it to Zach Charbonnet 7 straight times, and they will get in field goal range, set up for a touchdown, you name it. He didn't do that this time. He was becoming greedy. He knew the importance of this game and wanted to make a big-time play. And he has made big-time plays like that. But that one resulted in a big-time play for the Rams with the pick 6. The third and final one, the A.J. Barner one that I mentioned, that one, I am saying, A.J., get to your spot. They drew up the play to go to AJ. Now, obviously, you have multiple reads, but I haven't seen the all 22. I'm guessing that was the first read to AJ, and that was it. That'll be open. That was the mindset going into that play. It wasn't open because he was held. Geno delivers the pass thinking he will be there, and it's picked off. It's a bang-bang play. That's 1-2, deliver. It's not 1-2, 1-0 read. No, it was 1-2 deliver, and it got picked off. So I'm giving the blame to AJ Barner. I know Geno would never do that. Geno will go up there and say, it's all on me. That's his game. I get it. But that was my quick breakdown on the interceptions. Mike, the floor is yours.
Yeah, first one, JSN got to catch that. Pretty obvious. I don't think there's much debate there. It's a first down if he catches it, I believe, on 3rd and 9. Second one, yeah, I mean, Geno can't. He got to eat the sack there. I think he just should have just took a sack.
Okay.
It'd been really frustrating, but I mean, it was 1st and goal from the 6. You shouldn't try to force it because he was trying to throw it away. He said that after the game. He's trying to throw it away, which is fine, but 1st and goal from the 6. Eat it. You got to eat it. That's what goes into decision making. Because honestly, on Geno's, I think got like 10 interceptions or something like that this year. He's thrown a lot.
10 and 10 or something. 11 touchdowns, interceptions, something crazy.
It's quite a bit. But I really don't think any of them are a case of him not seeing the field well, if that makes sense. Like it really does feel like he's got a lot of tipped ones, a lot of ones where like, oh, okay, I see where we're going there. You know, like even the last one against the Lions, which no one really kind of remembers because it was garbage time. Like it's clearly what's going. You can see what's going on there. It's a heave. They're down 2 scores. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of see the vision on all of them. I felt like this one, the second one was like, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to throw it away. That's actually not stupid. It was just trying to hold on to the ball too long. Or excuse me, it was trying to hold on to the ball too long on 1st and goal. That's where it's bad. The third one, I actually thought the play call was fine. I think AJ does get hooked by the D lineman, so I'll cut him some slack there. Like you see it, like he has to hop over someone, a free rusher, I believe, and Geno's got it. He's in his face, guy's in his face, and he gets hooked by the D lineman. Geno throws with anticipation, not anticipating that he'll get hooked. That's kind of unfortunate there. I like that Geno took the blame on that, but when you see it and you see, oh, my man got hooked, that's tough. However, Geno has to throw that sidearm because there's pressure in his face. And at that point, that's probably where he should just dirt it because I think that was 2nd and goal. It's the down and distance that really is what makes him look bad. It's like you can live to fight another down in both of those instances. I see trying to throw it anticipation on the play action because there is no other read. Michael Hoyt's in his face. He's rolling out. He's cooked. It's either dirt it, sack, or try to let it fly and let AJ make a play. And I do think both of the goal line ones are an example of, it's not excuse, I'm just kind of reading Geno's mind here, of a guy who is trying to do a lot. He is trying to do a lot. This is a guy I don't think, whether he's conscious of it or not, has much faith in what else is going on. He's like, yo, they're putting the ball in my hands. I got to go make a play. That seems to be very clearly the mindset. I don't even think I'm reaching here by projecting my thought onto Geno's behavior. It seems very obvious that that's what's going on. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not. And in this game, it was not. And those are really good examples of that because he's not a guy, like he's probably dropping back as much as like, no, probably not as much, but like he's probably carrying as much of the offense as someone like Jordan Love, for instance. Jordan Love was also throwing a lot of interceptions, but his interceptions seem to be just bad throws versus like where Geno seems to be very much like, I got the ball, I got to make something happen. I got to make something shake. And he's doing that a lot. And I do think that's whether he'll admit that or not, I'm projecting my thought. No one's like texted or called me on that, but it just looks like it. I'm just calling what I see. I've seen Geno play enough games to know like what pressing looks like. We kind of see it usually in the back half of every season. It's like, damn, we can't run the ball. They can't block. When I drop back, I got to throw a touchdown. Now you can see Geno reluctantly throws checkdowns. He loves to take a shot. That's his thing. He reads from high to low. Where's the deep ball? Oh, that's not there. Then check it down. That's how he's a big game hunter in that way. And this was not the game to big game hunt because it burned him. It did. So yeah, I think that's how you can kind of categorize all 3 picks.
Well, Sam Howell enters the chat. Would things be different with Sam Howell at quarterback? We got a few on that.
We did get a few Sam Howell questions. With all due respect to Sam Howell, I'll be very brief on this. The answer is hell no. It is a hard no. And that's not disrespect to Sam. It's very similar to the difference between Geno Smith and Drew Lock. There is a very big difference. Like, I'm pretty sure Sam led the league in interceptions and sacks last year. Like, he was not seeing the field well, you know, and you could see that in camp too, and not as much in the preseason, but you could still see it. Like, there's a talent issue there, like there legitimately is. And right now, the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, very much like last year and the year before that, is being asked to overcome what's around him versus being uplifted by what's around him. Those are very different things. Some guys are equipped to do that and some guys are not. I can say with the utmost confidence that Sam is not better equipped to overcome the things around him than Geno is. Now, if they were both being uplifted by like great play calling, great O lines, pretty much if their offense looked like Detroit, I do think you could probably get comparable stats from Sam and Geno if you just dropped them both into the Detroit, you just swapped them both for Jared Goff right now. You'd probably get comparable results statistically, because when you're in a advantageous situation as a quarterback, a lot of guys can eat. We just seen Jared Goff eat. I don't think Jared Goff better than Geno, but he's in a great situation and he eats consistently on that. But when you're asked to like, oh, hey, do everything like Dak and Geno are doing right now, this is what you, and it just takes a different guy to function in that. Like Geno's functioned in spite of what's around him for quite some time. I think if you ask Sam to do that, which he was kind of doing in Washington last year, then you get a guy who leads the league in interceptions and sacks. The sack number is important too, because he was just not seeing the field well at all. So hard no on Sam. I think he's a fine backup, but if you think that he's gonna overcome more, oh, you're highly mistaken. Like he'd be back there getting destroyed. Destroyed. I don't even think he'd make it through the year. You start Sam, you're not gonna make it a month behind this O line. I don't wish injury on anybody, but I don't know how anybody could watch the O line and Grubb and think otherwise.
At what point do you think Geno Smith might be costing the Seahawks some games?
I feel like, Chris, this is a good time to play Geno's opener from his press conference today. I forget what he was asked. I think just like something generic about assessing the offense or something. Doesn't matter. But here is his response to the first question of his press conference today with us, just Geno after the game.
Just want to really start out by apologizing to my teammates, really, and to the city, to the organization. You know, they put a lot of trust in me with my decision making, and you know, when they put the ball in my hands, when my teammates play the way they played today, and you know, give us a shot to win the game, I got to make sure we do. And you know, the things I did today, mistakes that I made, they affected us negatively, and you know, really cost us the game today. Me knowing myself, I know how much this is going to hurt. I'm gonna step it up though. That's how I feel about it. I'm gonna step it up.
All right, Chris, there's a few things here. One, I appreciate the candor from Geno. I think I've talked about on this show, guys decline interview requests all the time. The quarterback can't usually do that. But I do appreciate the guys who are willing to come and talk about it. You know, I think I've mentioned guys will have bad games or whatever and just not want to talk. DK used to be like that. Like Reek didn't want to talk today. It's happened. Old linemen have declined or whatever, you know. So I always appreciate the guys who are willing to get up there. Two, Geno, Chris, I feel like for the first time, like you can feel the way you guys could see it in them. Guys who are watching, people who are watching the video, and I encourage you guys. I tweeted that video as well to look at it. Chris, I feel like if Geno's feeling the weight of costing his team a game, we could argue maybe for the first time as a starter. Like we really could. Like if we were to go through game by game, which I feel like me and you have done privately, but never on the show, went game by game with every game that Geno has started and finished. So cut out like I think one or two where he got hurt. Started and finished since 2022. We could easily point to something that was more problematic than the quarterback. In a lot of those cases, multiple things. Even something like the Bengals game last year, like you can't tell me that the O-line wasn't the most important reason why they lost and why they couldn't do nothing in the red zone. Like Geno was not good for a lot of that game, particularly in the red zone. But you can't tell me that Jake Curran rolling his ankle or whatever in the first quarter and then not telling Pete and then getting out there getting whipped by DJ Reader or whatever for the entire damn game was not more of the issue. Like today, it really, and it's not even definitive today, but it feels like, Chris, we've analyzed a lot of post-game press conferences from Geno. This feels like the first one where you can be like, all right, why did we lose the game? Let's make a list, like a grocery type list. This is probably the first one. If you guys want to argue, we can go through every game. This is probably the first one where I'm like, you could start with Geno. You could probably start with him as like, yo, my man, you were a net negative today, and you could feel it. And that's rough, but I feel like that is why we got an apology for the first time in Geno's time as a starter.
Yeah. He was not good on Sunday against the Rams. But boy, did he try to make up for it. My goodness. As bad as he played, he showed, damn, he's really good at this. That's why again, on that 4th and 1, why not just give it to Geno? 51 seconds, no timeouts. He leads boo-boo O-line, no DK Metcalf, him and JSN playing catch. Look like 7-on-7 if you ask me. All you gotta do is give him flags. Unnecessary roughness in the end zone there for 6.
I didn't realize JSN had 180. I didn't realize that until I was writing my story. I said, damn.
Bruh had an elite game and admit nothing at the end of the day. So that hurts. But I hear you, Mike. Geno Smith did not play his best football, and he realizes that. And to your point, the Seahawks could probably start with, Geno was not good. But man, did he make it. I'll say this. He made it very difficult to say he was just terrible because the Seahawks were in it because of his heroism at the end of the game. Does Sam Howell really give you guys an opportunity like that? You think Sam Howell at 51 seconds is going to lead the Seahawks down to score a touchdown? No DK Metcalf either? If you can answer that with a yes, go ahead and log off, man. Go ahead.
He could. He walked the Seahawks down twice in the 4th quarter of their game last year. So he could. It's not even that like he can't have Sam is incapable of playing well. It really just like you mentioned, no DK. It's just like
I don't think he does that. I'm sorry.
Probably not. Probably not. Not even going to disagree with you. It really is almost though. Additionally, I would say that you got to overcome quite a bit here. We talked about this last year too. The quarterback is being asked to overcome quite a bit. Like it's the O-line and it's the play calling too. We're right back again. Looking at the guy with the headset on. We can get to Grub a little later too. But I feel like Geno has done a great job, and Chris will talk about this a little later too. Geno has done a great job lying. He's got up in these press conferences. We have applauded him quite a bit for getting up there and being like, yeah, I got to be better. I got to be better. My teammates are doing their part. Grub called a great game. We got the right guys in the room. I got to be better. I got to be better. I got to be better. And he's lying like 90% of the time. Not that he's got to be better, but that he's the only one that's got to be like as if like he's the real starting point.
Insane.
They've had so many games where they would have lost by 30 if Geno didn't make like 4 throws in each of those games under pressure that were just dimes. Like really could line item it out for real. Of just like, guys, you lost today with Geno by like 8 or whatever. You would have lost by 25 if you had like Jameis or something. You know what I mean? This was a very Jameis-y game for Geno in that way. I think he had as many touchdowns as picks. Like, that's very Jameis-y in that way. But like, it's not total Jameis. Like look at Jameis today. They got their boots smoked right at the crib because when he has what Jameis experience, it's way worse than the Geno experience on the whole. So I really think he's done a good job lying and taking the blame, as we've talked about, as he should, and as quarterbacks do not always do, as we talked about on this show. Go watch a Jets press conference if you want to see what it looks like when the quarterback is not accountable. That boy Aaron Rodgers is blaming linemen for snapping or for false starts and procedural stuff. He blamed Mike Williams for running the wrong route on an interception. Like this is that Geno could be that, but he's not. He's getting up there, or he could be Russ and being like, it takes all 11 of us, whatever, blah blah stuff we don't want to hear, preachy stuff. Nope, he's up there like, you know what, I got to be better. And most of the time, even if the I got to be better is true, he could easily be like, this guy ran the wrong route. My center can't snap the ball. I have no right guard. Now I have no right tackle, blah, blah, blah. He could do that pretty much every game, right? He don't. He lies. Good for him. Today felt like real deal honest when he says like, my decisions affected us negatively, cost us the game. Like that's genuine. Like, oh no, I cost us a game today. And I don't think he's probably ever felt like that after a game. And you know what? Again, we can go through every game. We're not going to do it now, but like really go sit back and watch. And remember that Chris and I watch film of every game. Like really go back and watch every game. And it'd be tough to find a game like that. So that's why it really stood out today to me that he was like, yo, I gotta go say sorry because I stunk. That's good for him. He's said he's got to be better before, but Chris, today was like the first one. It wasn't just a cliche. Like I think even today he said, I'm not saying that just to say it. He did. I know for a fact he said those words today. You know why he threw that in there? because the other times he was saying it just to say it. I know he was. I can feel it. I know Geno at this point, man. Like, I know it. I can read the guy. He was saying it just to say it a lot of the times. Today, he was not. And it sucks because he's right. Today, he was at the top of the list of the problems of why the Seahawks lost.
Unfortunately. So now we can pivot. Offensive line. Whew, where do we start? So as bad as Anthony Bradford looked, just watching it, I haven't gone back and watched the film yet, but it didn't look great from him. Is Haynes that much worse, or how did they come to the decision of benching Haynes and saying, you know what, Anthony Bradford, you got it?
You know what? I know where to start, Chris. Can you play Mike Macdonald's answer today? Actually, this is Mike Macdonald post game today. I wasn't in there, but I watched the YouTube of it. This is Mike Macdonald. He was asked just generally to assess Geno's game, so nothing like leading into it. He's just like, "Hey, what'd you think of Geno? He threw a couple picks today, made some throws. What'd you think of him?"
Big time plays for us. It's not easy. Didn't have a lot of time back there. They had a good rush plan. We got to protect him better. And he's going to tell you that he's going to take ownership of the 3 picks. We got to make smarter decisions in that way. But we got to finish drives and we got to take care of the football. You guys see it. We see it. We have to be better if we're going to win.
Now, I think the sequencing of Mike Macdonald's answer there is very important, which is why I wanted to play that. Chris, you see what he started with? He said he didn't have much time back there. We got to protect him better. And I think that's also notable because as you guys have been following Mike Macdonald, and Pete did this too, they're usually not very quick to criticize the offensive line post-game. It's usually, I got to watch the film. I didn't see, I got to really go look at it, particularly since those guys are both defensive coaches. Mike's done that all year. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I got to go look at it. Or he'll just be like, yeah, I like our guys, how we fought, how we hung in there, something very generic that doesn't get into it. No. Today, he was like, hey, he didn't have no time. He was back there getting beat up. Then he went to the poor decisions. I think the sequencing is not an accident. I think that when it's so bad that Mike Macdonald can walk off the field and feel like, yeah, he was back there taking a beating. 7 sacks, I think, was the total, and 11 QB hits or something like that. Like when Mike Macdonald can walk off the field feeling that way, that's how you know it's real bad. Again, Mike Macdonald's sequencing, not an accident, just like Geno saying, I'm not saying that just to say it, was probably not an accident. These are real, genuine, like, emotions that match what we're seeing, honestly. I don't have to hear them say it, but it's nice to hear them, put words to what we're watching. Chris, Geno's back there getting his ass kicked by that line, and he's bouncing right back up, and he's making some throws that are cash. I mean, that 4th and 5 to JSN, the touchdown to JSN in the first half with pressure in his face, the touchdown to JSN to tie the game. Like, it is just, he's back there taking a beating, and I don't think that's an accident. Like that the coach mentioned that, because that's important. Chris, I don't think if someone asks about like Christian Haynes or whatever, AB, guys, I don't know how long y'all been Seahawks fans. I'm here to tell you, I got bad news for you. It can always get worse on the O-line. You can always put someone back there who's worse, because being an O-lineman is not just about talent, it's about consistency. And as soon as you're just inconsistent, and you have to be great on a snap, like every snap. You could play 70 snaps as an O-lineman, Chris. You give it 1 sack, everybody say you suck. Because if you do that every game, that's 17 sacks, and you'll never play again. Like, you could play 1,000 plays. If 20 of them were sacks, you're the worst lineman in the league. So it's really about consistency. So it can always get worse. But Chris, I don't think it was an accident that the coach got up there, defensive coach, who usually says, I got to watch the film. And the first thing after his quarterback threw 3 picks was like, yeah, we got to protect him better. Like, that's not an accident, guys. This is perhaps, I haven't watched every O-line in great depth, but Chris, I'm pretty confident this might be like a bottom 3 offensive line in the league right now.
Yeah, so much for me believing that this offensive line will be better, which I talked about ad nauseum in the offseason. Oh, it's going to be much better. I know they're missing Abe Lucas, but my gosh, having 3, I don't even know the word to describe the offensive linemen that are struggling, but 3 struggling offensive linemen. George Fant comes back. The knee issue flares up. He's back. You bring in Mike Jarrell. I felt bad for the young man. He just gets beat down, penalties, just a rough day in the office. I really felt bad for the kid because he's out there giving it his best, and his best just wasn't good enough. And it was putting the Seahawks in 2nd and 31. And they get the first down, which is unbelievable. Like, my goodness. Somehow they make plays, but it's just, I felt bad for the kid. He was just thrown out there. Stone Forsythe's out. We already mentioned Abe Lucas is out. The guy that you want to be starting, George Fant, he gets hurt. So now you're like, all right, Mike Jarrell, go and do your best. And it just wasn't his day on Sunday. And I felt bad for the kid. Anthony Bradford, he, I guess, won the job. I don't have answers. I'll have to watch the film just to see. I know it was bad, but I'm going to have to reassess and be like, okay. Because, man, they just, I don't know what else you want to add to Mike Jarrell, because we went over Anthony Bradford and the Christian Haynes thing. But with Mike Jarrell, I really just, man, kind of want to just get the big fella a hug. Like, it's cool, bro. You know, you 6th-round pick. You made the team. They didn't expect you to be playing, and boy, are you playing. That's tough.
See, the O-line for me, it's not being able to consistently block is obviously bad, of course. Like, I know how I'm about to sound here. But I really think the thing that is most concerning is the procedural / sloppiness. Like, that part is controllable. Knowing the snap count is completely controllable. I really think it's not unreasonable for O-linemen, outside of perhaps if you have a new center, to go the entire year without false starting. You know the snap count. I really don't. Why are you moving? You know, like, now again, if you have a new or rookie center, there's some growing pains there. But I really feel like that type of stuff, you know, is what's really concerning. And then with Connor in particular, these snaps are a problem. The first, I'm not like a snap expert, but the first snap that was botched today, I really felt like Geno just needed to catch that.
He dropped it, yeah.
All the bad snaps after that felt like they were on the center. Again, I'm not a center expert. I didn't get a chance to talk to Connor after the game. He's been pretty contrite, I guess is the word, or candid or whatever, whenever I have talked to him about like, hey, I got to be better. But let's just assume he would have said that today. I don't know. I didn't talk to him. But Chris, that is where I'm really concerned, because like right now you have AB and Mike Jarrell, who, if they never gave up a sack, would still be hurting the team with penalties. False starts, hold. I think Mike Jarrell wiped out like 78 yards of JSN receptions today. I'm not kidding. I think it was a 40-yarder and a 38.
Nah, you ain't wrong, man.
Now, the first holding call might have been a little questionable, but like, it's hard to give guys the benefit of the doubt when you're just not playing well. But that's 78 yards on two plays that weren't a sack. That is the stuff that's really concerning. And then with your center, you got to be able to snap the ball. Like, when I talked to guys in Miami, they were saying that was a problem there. You go look at some of the snaps, it clearly was, and now that's just carried over. It's not a new thing. Kind of just seems to be part of the situation when you get Connor. That kind of is what it is. But those things beyond the blocking, that is really problematic to me. And that's where I think everybody's job should be up for grabs coming out of the bye. Mike McDonald talked a little bit about that post game. He was like, everything's on the table. And he didn't specifically say like every O-line job is up for grabs, but I feel like that's what it's got to be, because guys are going to lose reps. I really don't think you can be too hard on you guys when, you know, losing reps and stuff like that, depending on what it looks like when they're losing the rep. Is it technique? Are you getting overpowered? Was the play call bad? Whatever. There's always stuff to analyze there. But if you just keep holding, if you keep committing false starts, if you're ineligible downfield, if you're just bad at snapping as the center, like those are all, I don't really have what's the word, sympathy or empathy, whichever one applies here. I don't have it for that. And I wouldn't if I was the coaching staff. You know, those are things that when we talk about the O-line not being good, we can go to that more than we can the blocking. Blocking is going to be, you're either good at blocking or you're not, but you should be able to snap the ball, not hold to take away critical plays, and not false start. You know, like that's, Chris, that is really, really problematic for me. That's just it's you can't overcome that. Like you said, they were in 2nd and 30 a couple times, at 3rd and 30. What are we doing here? You know, that is where I really think, beyond the protection itself, which is obviously not good, that part is why the season is probably sunk, because you're asking them to just play clean football throughout, and they just can't. If you can't play clean football, like you got no chance against the worst of the league. You know, like there's a reason it took them overtime to win by 3 against a team like the Patriots that's 2-7. You know, it's because you can't play clean, and you can't play clean ball You can lose to anybody, and you can look like the Seahawks do at 4-5 after starting 3-0.
Well, to finish off the offensive line, what's up with John Schneider not going for elite interior offensive linemen? You think he'll pay for a blue chip and free agent?
I think this is going to be one of those quotes, Chris. I think he said it on the radio. He said that interior offensive linemen are overdrafted and overpaid. He said that. And I think we talked about on the show. I don't even think that's wrong necessarily. He's basically treating interior offensive linemen kind of like you would treat like off-ball linebackers. Like, I'm probably not going to take you in the first round. Though he took Jordan Brooks, obviously, even though he tried to trade out of that pick. So he's kind of treating it like that, or like you would a safety or something. Maybe, anyway, you guys know what I'm saying. John's treating it like a non-premium pick, and he's treating it like one you don't overpay for a free agency. Generally, that is not a stupid philosophy. However, it looks ridiculously dumb if you then proceed to field a bad interior offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
It does. You just can't say, "Oh, these guys get overdrafted and overpaid, so we're going to take a different route," and then not be successful in your other route. Like, because at the end of the day, the results do matter. Like, even if I kind of can agree with the process of that I wouldn't take a guard with the 9th overall pick, right? Because of positional value and stuff like that. That's fine. But that guard I take in the 3rd round better be good then. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not going to pay $100 million for Robert Hunt, which is what the Panthers paid for him in free agency, I'm not going to pay $13 million a year, whatever Damian Lewis got. That's cool. That's not a bad process. But the guards you sign instead better be good then. It's a results thing. Like if I'm gonna not pay D-Lou, which is, again, whatever, that's fine process. D-Lou got a bag. Then the guy you signed to replace him needs to be good.
And he ain't better than D-Lou right now, I'll tell you that.
Right. And that's where John that's where his he can come under fire, because it's a results business. You're putting a bad product in front of your most important player. And you're actively doing that. Now, I'm not even sure there were great O-linemen in the draft anyway, where they were picking, and I'm not even sure that there were great O-linemen available to them in free agency with the money that they had. I know the Ravens and the Lions and the Rams all spent on offensive linemen in the interior, and I don't think that's working out, particularly for the Rams. I think their guys are injured and whatever. But John's process can sound good or sound fine or whatever, but it's just one of those quotes that's going to stick with him while they continue to have interior pressure. While you can't block rookies. Braden Fisk looked like Aaron Donald today. He really did. And you can't have that quote and then have the product look like that. I understand what John was trying to say, but now you can't escape the scrutiny of it, because now you're putting out bad product. You can't. If you're going to take a different route, cool, get good players. It's almost like remember how Pete would never basically draft corners high.
Short corners, yeah. But
yeah, he would never draft short corners or draft any corners high. That was cool because you were finding Sherms, you were finding Jeremy Lanes, you were finding Byron Maxwell's. Even Shaq was only the 90th pick. DJ Reed, Reek. That was a fine strategy while everyone else was taking 1st round corners, because he was finding corners in the back end of other places in the draft, so it was fine. John's taking a very similar approach, but then you're fielding what you're fielding. Now we're more focused on the results and the process, and after a decade plus of it, now we're like, dude, you just don't know anything about alignment. And there's no way John could reason his way out of that for me at this point, for anyone, to his boss, I'm sure, to Mike McDonald, whoever. It's just at this point, it's like, dude, you got to own that you have actively tried to be a discount shopper. You're trying to go to the grocery store with coupons with your O-line on the interior, and that's just not. You're coming away with spoiled cereal and old milk, and everyone in the house getting food poisoning.
Well, what now? NFC West, Seahawks are dead last. Not good. And since they're last, Mike, 3 things that can get them back on track, if they can at all.
Yeah, I thought about this. And again, remember, our guy Austin Mock at The Athletic has his projection model. He has a Seahawks at, I think, about a 7% chance of winning the division. And when you look at the standings in the NFC, the Seahawks, I think, are 12th right now. Tampa plays on Monday, so they could fall to 4-5 if they lose to the Chiefs. But the Seahawks' only path to the playoffs is winning the division. There's too many scrappy wildcard teams in the NFC North to think that they're going to get in that way. And I think that, Chris, I'm just curious what you think on my 3 to get back on track. I don't know if they will get back on track, but if you are going to like really self-assess at the bye week, here's what I would leave on Mike McDonald's door or on his desk, a little sticky note before I go off on my honeymoon. I would say, Mike, you need to fix the offensive line. Like, if you really want to be a buyer if you guys really believe in this year in particular, then I think you sell off whatever assets you need to get better linemen, even if that involves peeling off some other pieces from that are elsewhere, receivers, tight ends, running backs, D-line, whatever. Like, if that's what you got to do it, because you go nowhere without that. That's one. Number 2, you need discipline. Chris, I was just looking this up while we're going over our last question. Can I give you a number?
Oh, I'm good. Let's do it.
All right. So the Seahawks lead the league in penalties.
Not a shocker.
And now they've led the league in penalties before, I think famously in the Super Bowl season. But you guys can see that this is not the same as that. This is not them just being over aggressive on defense and being able to live with the results of that. This is an undisciplined football team. It is. And that's just undeniable. Julian Love talked about that post-game too. He was like, we got too many penalties. And I don't need Julian Love to say that because the numbers back it up, but still. So they lead the league in penalties total. They're second in offensive penalties in particular. And that is where I think we can really distinguish from the Super Bowl season where they were like, had a bazillion penalties. There's no style of ball, Chris, that should allow you leading the league in penalties on offense. That's just ridiculous. That's an undisciplined team. And it's not like it's a bunch of delay of games or something because Geno's getting to the on the ball late. Like, it is ineligible downfield. I'm not going to read the whole breakdown. It's false starts. It's holding. It's just everything possible. They got every penalty there is, damn near, on offense. And they are, and you guys know, if you live and listening all year, I love this stat. In penalty EPA, or let me see, they're second in offensive penalties, behind the Browns, which is bad. Their O-line stinks too. And then the Texans are third. Their O-line also stinks. They're going to get CJ Stroud killed. But the Seahawks are also second behind the Browns in penalty EPA. That measures the impact of the penalties. Like, what are your penalties doing to your team? They're nullifying touchdowns. They're nullifying explosives. Like, just like I mentioned earlier, 2 plays alone, Jackson damn near had 200 yards today. He got wiped out. Now, one of those is because he dropped a pass that led to a pick. But the penalty EPA, like, you're not just committing a lot of penalties. You're committing costly ones. Truly, truly costly penalties. So if I'm Mike McDonald, I'm leaving that note. Number 2, discipline. And then number 3, Chris, like you were talking about earlier, you got to have some type of identity. You know what? We talked about that 4th down play earlier. You know what that 4th and 1 play felt like? Grubb trying to prove their identity.
Oh, running the football, that aspect of it? Yeah,
yes.
Stupid. It didn't make any sense. Damn that.
It felt like in overtime, he was like, you know what? Finally, it's late in the game and we have a chance to run our whole playbook, which they did because it was, tied up and they had timeouts and stuff. It was like, you know what? Let's try to reestablish this run. And it worked till they got down there. But that particular instance of the 3rd and 1 shotgun run and the 4th and 1 heavy personnel felt like we're going to impose our will. We're going to try to establish our identity, prove who we are right here, right now. And I understand wanting to do that. I don't even disagree necessarily with doing it, but it feels like that's a reaction to the first 8 weeks of not having an identity. Like, it felt like he was trying to prove who they are versus that actually being who they are, if that makes sense. That very felt much like, all right, we need to prove something to the Rams and to ourselves and to our fans and to the league that we are a physical football team. When the other team knows we're going to run it, we can run it. That is exactly what that felt like. It is. I don't get to talk to Grubb post-game, but just kind of feeling it out, that's exactly what it felt like. And it almost feels too late for that. Like, you kind of are who you are at this point. And I don't know, man. It's tough. They got to find an identity. On defense, I kind of get a feel for what they want to be. But I feel like also, Chris, you can't have an identity with how many penalties they're committing.
Ugh.
Dog, they got called for holding twice on defense on run plays. I didn't get a replay of either one, but that's crazy. That's crazy. How many? Let me see where they rank in defensive penalties. It's probably not that high. Actually, Chris, I lied. It is. They're seventh.
They get penalties every game on the defense.
Yeah,
holding,
it's
illegal touching. It's like, bro, this was an issue with Pete. It wasn't like this is brand new. Now the defensive holding is a little different, but the corners being aggressive and holding, Reek been doing that. Trey Brown is famous for doing that. Trey Brown getting a little trouble, he just start grabbing that, and I think that's why he's been pretty much put to the side. The competition thing that Mike McDonald talked about, I think that's one of the reasons, because Josh Jobe, he got called once for ticky-tack. It got flagged for it, but Trey Brown is consistent about that. I feel every time Trey's in the game, there's going to be 3rd and 9. Oh, there's a flag. Oh, number 22, holding. Number 22, illegal contact. Number 22, hands to the face. Number 22, it just happens way too often. I'll give Josh Jobe a little credit. He only had the one on Sunday against Cooper Kupp. But famously, Trey Brown, he gets caught and just panics and starts hugging folks. I think Mike McDonald just had enough of that. But I could be wrong. Maybe Josh Jobe is quote unquote better, but they are famous for when they get in tight spots, they hug and grab. Hell, the pass interference on Reek today, when he just pushes DeMarcus out of bounds and then tried to say he was out of bounds. Bruh, he was 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. You can't touch him. It's that simple. Not only do you touch him, you shove him out of bounds. Just bad, just not smart. So yeah, both sides of the football got to get better in that penalty aspect, because that is killing them.
I will cut Trey a little slack. He has 3 penalties in 7 games. Josh already has 3 in 3 games.
Oh, so it's not as bad. Oops.
Actually, sorry. Josh has 3, but only 2 were accepted. He had 1 against Drake London, 1 against Kupp today. He had 1 against Keon Coleman as well, but after holding Keon also caught the ball for 25 yards. So he wiped it off. I shouldn't have said it like that. But so he's getting grabbed. It's the whole unit, I guess, is why I wanted to bring up the numbers there, which then tells me it's like, because it was Spoon earlier in the year, and now it's more like everyone but Julian is basically getting them. So it's like that's why I think discipline should be the third thing that Mike addresses. Like, that's where you go from here. You know, we're going to get into some other big picture stuff too, with whether they're buyers or sellers at the deadline and stuff, but that is where you fix things. That is it. You hammer out that O-line. If you got to make another trade, go ahead, whatever. Your books are already cooked, so don't worry about clean books or whatever. If you're trying to win now, then be that. But you got to start there. You're not going to win a damn thing. You might not win another game if your O-line's bad. And I'm not joking. Like, that really can cook you every week. You got to get disciplined. You're not going to... How many penalties they have today? Let me see. 12. That's the second game in a row with double digits. You're not going to win money games in the league with double-digit penalties every week. Like, you're just not, you know? And then identity. I feel like if you clean those first 2 things up, you'll probably get an identity in the process. But yeah, Chris, that's where they got to go from here, coming out of this bye week. O-line and get some discipline, please. And then, yeah, you got to find out who you are, for real. Not who you want to be, like Chris said. Who you say that you want to be. I talked to Tyler Lockett, last thing before we move on to the next question. I talked to Tyler, this was Friday or Thursday or Friday, and I was asking him, like, yo, something about the offense, and he said something to the effect of, we can't just keep saying it. Like, we got to go do it. Like, we know who we are. Like, we have to go do these things. We got to see it, you know? Because he knows the talent they have, but it's like, dog, how much talent don't matter on 2nd and 26? You know, unless the defense messes up, you know? So they got to clean that up. And I think that in the process of the O-line addressing and the identity, and the discipline, perhaps they'll find an identity along the way.
Well, rebuilding. That has come up quite a bit because, man, the Seahawks are doing a lot of losing. So, a couple of things here. John Schneider selling the team? Mike, you have more insight on that. And then also, to back in that, are there any players that are worth trading right now?
Yeah, I figured these questions would come, which I wanted to address it. I want to read a text I sent to my editor. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it verbatim because it would be cooler for the show. I said, I can't find it. But I basically, the gist of what I said to him was this loss was just close enough that John Schneider is not even going to consider being a seller at the deadline. And I'm sure you guys would, knowing John and how he thinks and what he's done over the years, I'm sure you guys can agree. Like, if they had got blown out, yeah, perhaps John and Jody are like, hey, this ain't it. We getting smoked. That would have been back to back getting smoked at the crib, which owners care a lot about home stuff, particularly with Bills fans invading the stadium in week 8. Very similar to how Blue Jays fans invade whatever the T-Mobile Park when they come play the Mariners. It looked very similar. They got blown out to the point where Geno damn near called the fans out. Actually did call the fans out. That type of stuff matters to ownership. If that would have happened again, crowd was great today, by the way. But if they would have got their boots smoked right ahead of the deadline, I think it would have been a lot easier to rationalize, all right, we're done. Let's start punting off some assets. Not like complete fire sale. Stuff still has to make sense. But Chris, I think because it was a close loss in overtime, I really think it's not. I can almost guarantee John Schneider's watching the film. We're gonna meet with Mike McDonald, that is, and be like, man, we're right there. If we just have a few plays, go, a few different ways, we'd be right in it, right in the division. We got this many games left. Like, you can just see it. You can see how John would convince himself of that and how he could sell that to Jody. You can see it. Do Chris and I agree? I'm not sure. But I can almost guarantee that's the mindset, is that they're right there. They have the guys, they have the pieces. If they get Abe back, that addresses an O-line thing. Maybe they swap out centers, that helps. Like, you can see how they would think, we're right there. They have had the ball with a chance to tie or take the lead, Chris, in every single loss with the exception of Buffalo. So they've had the ball with a chance to tie or take the lead in fourth quarter or overtime of every loss but Buffalo. So that right there tells you, okay, they're there. At least that's what's going to tell them. I don't think that, but that's what's going to tell them. I need to make that very clear that I am not I'm of the impression they have a lot of good talented players, but talent doesn't win games. Execution does. You can have all the talent in the world. You got to actually be able to execute. I feel like the Seahawks can point to a bunch of things they did really well in this game, but when it came down to it, they couldn't get a yard, and the Rams got 83 of them to win the game. Boom. Execution. Rams had a bunch of stupid penalties too, overcame them, right? So I think John's not going to be a seller. I feel very confident in that because it's so easy to jump in his head and be like, we're right there. They're not, Chris. But I think we could probably agree. John's probably not going to sell off this thing Monday night and into Tuesday based on where they are right now.
Now, you mentioned Abe. It all depends on something, and that revolves, getting out there on the practice field. Right now, he's slowly but surely getting ramped up. I said I don't think he's going to play this season. I could be wrong. He still might play, but boy, why are you going to put him out there, to be honest, at this point? I know they need him, but how much better will it get? Mike mentioned earlier, or maybe we talked about it off wax. Charles Cross is having to basically play perfect. That's the same thing you're going to ask of Abe. Now, sometimes you're going to get beat, albeit I'm sure Mike can find the stats. Abe didn't get beat too often. So, but now with the struggles with the other tackles, hence your right guard, hence your center, hence your left guard. Those are 3 players that, can I count on you every play? Can I trust you to do your job? Something Leonard Williams talked about on the defensive side of things. I need you to do your job, stay in your gap. Well, if you're getting cooked one-on-one, damn, maybe I could just come over and chip for a second. Meanwhile, they're doing a stunt on Abe's side. Now Abe is out of position because he's trying to help the guard in this scenario. So now Abe is trying to overcompensate by helping out, and now that results in maybe a sack or a batted pass, whatever. Those are things that I'm thinking about if Abe is to return. And now I question, you're 9 weeks in. You have a 7% chance to just win the division, which is probably going to be your way into the playoffs. Is it really worth it bringing Abe back if he is working his way back slowly? Let's say he's available for week 14. Do you really throw him out there? That's something to start thinking about. Is it too late now? Because they're in a situation where they're 4-5 and they got damn near went out. They've lost too many NFC games. We talked about that last week. Beating the Falcons, thumbs up. Losing to the Giants, triple thumbs down. And then you lose in your NFC rival game against the Rams. And not to mention, after your bye week, you got a huge game against the Niners at their Palace. Yeah, man. I'll tell you right now, I will say it might be too late to bring Abe back. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. Like, maybe the continuity of maybe the offensive line might be the reason you bring him back. But at this point, I could see if they were a better football team, had a better record. Hell, if they were 6-4, 6-3, whatever that. If they were 6-3, okay, you know what? Bring Abe back. Their offensive line could use him, bro. They're 4-5. To me, the process doesn't make sense to bring him back. That's where I stand. Let's see.
So,
go ahead.
I would just real quick. I would bring him back, 1, just to see how his knee is. 2, so you don't get Geno killed, and 3, seeing how his knee is lets you know whether you need to draft a right tackle in with your first pick. I do think that information is important. Like, if his knee is cool, that informs your draft decisions versus if you're like, "Ooh, his knee is cooked." Actually, it informs your draft decision either way. Now I think about it, or your free agent. I think you got to see how the knee responds, because like George Fant today, you put him out there. Oh, his knee might be done. I don't know, but that lets you know. At least you have the info. You got to at least, I think, see Abe out there, so you know. Oh, Abe's gonna be fine. Or our first pick has to be a tackle, or we need to go buy a tackle. I think that information is valuable, even if it does not change your season, because Abe's going into, this is year 3. So this is the year where he could either get an extension. Yeah, he could get an extension in the offseason. Probably not, but you got to have that information. I think that would be the reason to put Abe on the field.
All right. We also got the few more in this section here. Let's try to tank. Mike, you've explained a lot. That's not a good idea. Really isn't. Doesn't make much sense. And number 2, trading Reek Woolen. Is it time to give up on Reek? I don't know. I say no. He didn't play well on Sunday. He's still a really talented corner. He just got beat a lot. Oh, that sounds bad.
That does sound bad.
He just had a really rough day in the office. There's no excuse for that. He had an off day, and that off day resulted in an L. The floor is yours.
Yeah. You know what? I think this is a good question about tanking, because as you mentioned, we talk about this quite a bit. No, I don't think you should ever tank, because that means you're losing on purpose, and that's just bad culture. I think culture does matter. I think the Lions are a really good example of why culture matters. Like, you can see, we've got to see them on Hard Knocks. We've got to follow Dan Campbell since he's, was biting kneecaps in the opener. He established the culture there, and it's how they got through. They were like 1-6 or 1-7, I think, in 2022 or something, and turned it around. Like, because it was because of the culture. It's because they figured it out, through Dan and his leadership, and winning comes with that. And also knowing that you're trying to play for the now. Guys are out there risking a lot. Guys are one play away from snapping a leg, a concussion that has them carted off. Like, you can't, in bad faith. And that's the issue that, like, you see some of these teams making quarterback changes. It's like, yeah, you're changing quarterbacks because you can't just out there prioritize your young quarterback's development, like in Indy. Like, you can't do that while you're asking guys to play through MCL sprains and play through bad wrists and play through needing their ankles cleaned out after the season, when you're just like, oh, well, we're just trying to develop such and such. Nah, man, can't do that. The other problem, Chris, with like bottoming out, like kind of intentionally, is there are other teams that are going to be better at it. There are. You look at the teams that are in last right now, even if you were like, let's get a high pick and draft a quarterback, right? Because let's say you're out on Geno, which if you are, I'm not really here to argue with you at this point. I disagree, but it's not worth rehashing on this particular episode. But like, Chris, I'm going to read you all the teams that are 2-7. Are you ready? All right.
Do it.
In the NFC, the Giants, the Saints, and the Panthers. And in the AFC, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Jags, and the Browns. In addition to the Titans and Dolphins being 2-6 apiece. Like, that's a lot of bad teams. Like, even if the Seahawks wanted to get real bad, I think other teams would be better at being bad. Like, that probably wouldn't. It'd mess around and win too many games, particularly with their schedule. I do think before we get to Reek, someone asked if you who do you sell off if they were going to be sellers, or they mentioned like, oh, is John going to be a seller? I don't think so, but Chris, and we can workshop this in real time because we didn't talk about it ahead of time. But I think if you are going to sell, I wouldn't sell off the young pieces. I think I would actually keep those guys, and I would just try to just peel off like bad contracts I don't like. If I was John, like who's on a bad like pretty much if you're not on a rookie deal, you're probably susceptible to getting traded. That's what selling off would look like to me because I do think you got to keep some type of a core intact, even if you are going to rebuild. You can't just have nothing. That is bad. Like you can't be the Panthers. Panthers have no blue chip players. Depending on how you feel about like JC Horn, like they just kind of got a lot of nothing. On rookie deals. I'm sorry, I should specify on rookie deals. You need those core type of players. You can't have a rebuild of any kind because one draft doesn't change everything for you. Seahawks nailed the 2022 draft. Look where they're at now, right? So one draft doesn't do it. So I do think you need some core players on rookie deals. Like you need JSN, you need Spoons, you need Boye, D Hall. Like you keep those guys, but like they probably wouldn't trade Locke. But like Locke's a contract. Draymond, Channa, J Love, like all these veteran deals. Jay Reed, probably not Leonard because he just signed that. Which would probably rule out Noah too because he just signed that one. I'd have to go look at the math on that. But I think those are the deals you look at. Is everyone who's not on a rookie deal who you don't consider a blue chip player. So I probably still keep Geno because I think Geno's good. But everyone else who's not on a rookie deal and who I wouldn't consider a blue chip, not just a good player, but like a blue chip. Like, oh, you're probably gonna be like all pro at some point, maybe.
Damn near the whole roster, Mike.
I don't think it's that many guys because also I don't think that many people have that much value to other teams. And so that would be part of that. But yeah, I think most of the defense for sure you could in theory sell off and then just play young guys instead and see what you got. You'd be you'd be putting like Jarek Reeds out there and like Tyakatas, next to Kobe Bryant's, which you're basically just evaluating the young bucks at that point.
That's punting on the season, Mike. Good God.
Yeah, but I just think that's what being a seller is at the deadline. But I think if you do that, I think people have this idea like, okay, let's move DK, let's move Reek. No. You're looking at this backwards. You're not getting much. You're not getting value for anyone tomorrow or Monday or election day, the deadline. You're just not. You look at what these guys are getting traded for. Guys are getting traded for future picks, 2026 type stuff, conditional picks that turn into something else. I just think you kind of need to clean your books a little bit more than you need to like try to get a first round pick for DK per se. You know what I mean? Like DK is only like 26, 27. Like there are certain guys that I'm keeping because I consider them blue chip and everyone 24. On a rookie deal. No, DK older than that.
My bad. You're right. He's 20. I think he's 29.
Nah, I think he's whatever. His birthday is in December, but
nonetheless, yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy I'm keeping because I consider him a blue chip. But if you're not a blue chip and you're not on a rookie deal, yeah, then that's when I probably clean house. You're not gonna get much, but I just feel like you would just need the assets because people I think like you say trade Reek probably because it's like, oh, we get a high pick. No. Reek's a young player at a really good position. You got multiple years of team control. Like there's something you can work with there, So that's if you're gonna be sellers, that's how you should look at it. If that's what you want, that's the way to view it. That's how John should go about it, not just get rid of the young blue chip dudes. That's dumb. Like imagine trading Charles. That's how I'd feel about like trading like Reek. You know what I mean? I don't think they should do stuff like that if they're gonna be sellers. I don't think they will, but I want to make clear that if you do it, that is the way to go about it, not selling off your young guys.
Well, people are looking for some of the positives. I'll be honest, that whole we fought, we didn't give up type stuff, I told you 2 weeks ago. I don't want to hear that after losing to a Met team. I don't care about that. Don't nobody want to hear you say we fought hard and lost to the Rams. What? That's crazy. I can see you fought hard and lost to the Ravens. Okay. I get it. Damn, they're better than you. You didn't give up. Cool. The Rams, same offensive line issues. Yeah, we fought hard, though. We didn't give up. Guys played their hearts out. Excuse me. I'm aware. I saw the game. I didn't think you guys were quitting, but that's just obvious. I get it. So, Mike, Is that something that's important to look at? That's a couple of listeners are questioning, like, hey, is that a thumbs up? Is that good? Sure, it's good, but in my head, I'm like, bruh, it's the Rams. You don't want to lose. It's either a W or an L. There is no we fought hard. I don't care about it. Where do you stand?
So I'm glad you feel so strongly about this. That's good. I care a great deal about fight. I do with a new regime. Actually, there's two reasons I care about fight. Either with a new coach or a coach you're not sure about firing, like an older one, like who's been there for a little bit, because those are like really important. Like it was very clear that team was no longer fighting for Urban Meyer. Like whatever year they fired him. I think that was 2021. Like it was time. Same thing with it was another coach. The Matt Rule Panthers. Like it was very clear they had no fight, right? The Saints. Perfect example. They are no longer fighting for Dennis Allen. Like there is zero reason to keep him. Like he should, by the time this episode drops, his key card should not work. Because it's very clear that they're no longer fighting for him. You can just see that. And we can go down a list of teams that's been the case for over the years. I don't think that was the case for the Jets. I probably wouldn't have fired Saleh, but it also seems like that for the Raiders. It no longer seems like they have any fight for AP. He's out here firing assistants. I could easily see him being gone by the end of the year as well. I'm trying to think of some other teams. Either way, you guys get the gist. So I do think the fight matters for that reason, because it is a new staff. Like if you had to make a decision here, I'm like, McDonald, if they were just getting blown out, no longer fighting for them, no longer like running down tackles at the end, or no longer like battling, they are fighting tooth and nail. I do think that matters when you're trying to evaluate your new guy, because sometimes it is worth punting on a dude after a season. That's how they got Pete. They fired Jim Mora after a year. The Niners went through some guys before they landed on Kyle Shanahan. A couple of guys only got 1 year, Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly. So I do think that fight's important, because when it's gone, you can tell. I remember last year, Brandon Staley kept kind of saying, yeah, I know my message is not getting lost because, we're in all of these games. Then they gave up like 60 to the Raiders, and then he got fired because it was very clear that they were no longer fighting for him, and they had to fire Brandon Staley. So the fact that it's not at that point, I do think is notable and relevant. It's not the end all be all, but I do think how often we are hearing it is emblematic of how bad the rest of the things are. If the first thing like McDonald is saying when it's like, oh, what are some positives? What does your team do well through 8 weeks? And he's like, yeah, we fight, we're really tough. And I'm like, cool. What else? And he's rattled off some other things. We talked about that on our one big thing. Yeah, there are other things they do really well, but Chris, it ain't much. It really ain't much.
I guess that's where I have the problem with it, because it ain't much. And to me, the Seahawks are built on, and maybe that's because of Pete Carroll. Well, not maybe. It's because of homegrown Pete Carroll. They're built on fight. And when you come to this organization, it's all about championships. It's about winning. It's about getting in the fight. So to me, I'm thinking, yeah, bruh, I know that. And that's just me with the blinders on. So that's one reason why. Because, yeah, bro, you come to the Seahawks. This ain't the Panthers. It's not, yeah, we're fighting hard, but we're losing to some really good teams. No, y'all just suck. And that's okay. You guys can try to get better. The Seahawks aren't in that situation. When you look at this roster, you've talked about it. There's talent. So I really just don't want to hear the talent, the fact that you're not giving up. Duh, you got some competitors out there. Devin Witherspoon is one of the most when you hear the word compete, you think of Devin Witherspoon. You think of Leonard, you think of Jay Reed, you think of Julian Love. That's the team. So to me, it's just, I'm aware of that, but I honestly care less. You don't have a bunch of guys that aren't competing. That's not this team. This team is full of competitors. I guess, in other words, Mike, come up with something new. Don't tell the media we're fighting hard. They know that. There's nothing new. Now, maybe your players need to hear that, but even then, I don't think Devin would ever take a play off. That's not the type of player he is. If he could go out there with a broken leg, he would. That's just crazy, but that's the type of mentality he has. He will talk crap to you down 21. He don't care. He's playing football, what he loves. So when I hear the head coach like, yeah, man, we're fighting hard, I'm like, I wonder if the players are like, bro, we know we fighting hard. We still losing. Can we win? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. There's some human elements to like the fighting part that I think that
And I
does
hear
matter for the evaluation. It's like, yo, you got to know, because if they weren't, that would be a problem for sure. It would be
Mike's
a major, oh yeah, for sure. And all his assistants would be out of here too. Because if once you're not fighting for, like, because I think the defense, if there is a positive, before we move on to the next joint, the way the defense, the way that not even just fight, the response to the adverse situations. Like, they were put in some tough spots today and didn't flinch. Like, I thought, like, for instance, they had an issue last week. I can't remember the specifics of it, but Geno fell down, tripped over Connor, right? That was a problem. It was 4th down. That only gave the Bills the ball at the 7. They still had to go 93 yards. That type of thing happened today, and the Rams didn't score. That is a level of resilience that I do think is positive. Like, because that's who you got to be. That's what complementary football looks like. The offense just wasn't returning the favor. But that's a great example. It's like, yo, okay, Geno threw a turnover in the red zone. All right, cool. Or the goal line. Okay, how did the defense respond? I think they forced a punt. That part, I do think that part. That's important. And the fight does matter, but I'm with you that can't be the best thing you do. That's got to be a product of all the other good things you do. It can't be the best thing, because that, like Geno said today, to his credit, he doesn't believe in moral victories. And the Seahawks man-to-man official stance is we do not either. Moral victories around here. Go win. Yeah. Go win. That is what it is. Go win.
Well, to close everything, all the questions we got, are they getting close to someone getting fired? And what about the rumors of a new GM? Maybe Louis Riddick?
Yeah, I do think that if I'm Jody, man, it feels good to be rich. That'd be great. If I was Jody, I'm a billionaire. I do think everything's got to be on the table. I feel like the fight. Here's another reason why the fight stuff is important, because that is a Mike thing in terms of him as the head coach. Now, everyone below him, there are way too many problems and inconsistencies to feel good about anyone under him that's a coordinator or position coach. Way too many. Special teams too. Like, there's not a position group that's played consistent for 2 games in a row, I feel like, all season. Maybe the D-line, I think. Everybody else is having some type of issue that you can probably point to coaching. It's really crazy. So I do think the fight part is important for the evaluation of Mike. Everything else, though, yeah, man, I feel like we might have talked about this before the year. Maybe even after Pete got fired. Remember when he said that little sly comment like, hey, John, you wanted the big chair? Well, here you go, buddy. This is why. Because now Mike Macdonald not the fall guy. Like, you can't he could scapegoat the new guy, but the reason he can't is because what we just talked about. Like, John can't go into Jody office if she's like, yo, Johnny, what's up? Can't be like, well, the way the staff is, the way they coaching some guys. I'm like, well, no, you just told me that in January, and I booted the winningest coach ever in our franchise's history. Don't give me that again. Can't do that again. That's gone now. Especially because he can be like, Mike can go in there and be like, hey, look, we haven't lost the guys. We in there fighting. We just got to clean up some things with my staff or clean up some things with some personnel. Mike has now the benefit of the doubt, where I think if you're John, that is gone. And a lot of it, Chris, I feel like, is with the O-line and his defensive moves. Like, it's taken way too long to try to rebuild an elite defense. I feel like he's got a good front, but then even then, you got like one of the worst run defenses in the league. And then someone asked me today, when's the last time we had a good O-line? I think I said 2018. That line was actually pretty decent. It was like average. That was the line that had Dwayne Brown in his first full year with the team. They had Fluker that year, found Sweezy real late. I think their center was Britt for a little bit. Might have been for the whole year. I forget who the right tackle was. Oh, it must have been Fetty. So that line was like the last time I was like, oh, okay, this is all right. Particularly knowing what I know now about O-line play, going back and watching that season. Yes. Chris, that was 6 years ago. That was a long time ago, man. And I feel like they've had several different O-line coaches since then. Andy Dickerson. Now they got Scott Huff. They had Mike Solari. Different offensive coordinators. Totally different O-linemen. I feel like all of this stuff equates to, and maybe we can have a John Schneider episode at some point, but I feel like all of this comes back to, like, the GM has lost the benefit of the doubt. He could maybe have had it when Pete was here because Pete had been here so long. He had hired a bunch of his guys. He had final say over personnel. You could maybe in good faith, like Jody did, be like, you know what? I need to get rid of him and I'll keep you, Johnny. Go get your guy. Let's do this. Let's ride. Cool. Now what? Like if you're Jody and I'm John, and you're like, hey, what's up? What's John supposed to say? Oh, well, it's the staff. Well, that's the staff you picked. Well, now what? Like, even if it was the staff, like, well, you went and hired a new one. I'll let you do that. Gave you the bread to interview everybody and talk to him and pick your boy. You went to church and prayed for the man to lose to in the title game so you could talk to him. I feel like that the benefit of the doubt is gone. I don't know what Jody would do. It's very hard for me to predict the behaviors of someone I've never met or heard spoken very much. Or I haven't heard her speak very much. Let me get that grammatically correct. So I don't know what she'll do. But the way I'm looking at it now, I see no benefit of the doubt to be given to the front office. That's the whole front office, by the way, not just John. Because it's like, now what? You got to pick the peoples, you got the draft picks, you got to pick the staff, you got to make a few trades to fix the mistakes you created with your linebackers and your D-line. Okay, you went into the season with no center, so you had to pick up a center off the street. Like all of this stuff, Chris, I feel like if we just really made a list, I feel like, man, if there wasn't pictures of John holding a Lombardi, he might be gone on election day. Bro, there's a lot of benefit of the doubt, I feel like, between that 2010 to 2012 run and then the Rush trade. I feel like that run and then that particular trade is carrying him and the rest of the front office right now. Because you can just see this is not a championship product. The best version of this is not a championship product. And that's what they want to be. And if you're grading it on that, yeah, I don't know how if it continues this way, John go into Jody office and comes out of it with the benefit of the doubt. It feels like it should be gone at this point.
As Mike said earlier, he out of here. So this is it. We appreciate all the love and support. Mike is gone. So enjoy it. Enjoy your travels, Mike. Safe travels. Again, if you're listening, you need to go onto YouTube, Seahawks Man to Man. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, TikTok, Seahawks Man to Man, and Instagram, Seahawks Man to Man. We'll have a bunch of clips throughout the week. Mike, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the love and support. We had a bazillion questions and everything, and we appreciate all the feedback, comments. Anytime you guys hit us on IG, Twitter, whatever, we see it all, even if we can't always respond to it. The love means the world to us. As Chris mentioned, this will be the last show or only show of this week. I'm headed out. By the time you're listening to this, I'm probably on a flight to the islands. I'm gone for the week. Need a little break, honeymoon, yada, yada, yada. But we'll be back when I get back. So until then, enjoy the week. Try to unplug from football for a little bit. It's healthy, I promise. Go vote or don't vote. I don't care. But just go do something else for a little bit. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side of my honeymoon. Peace.